everyone, JagTagger93 here with a video about my thoughts on a WAD that's currently in development by Zulja108 that's eerily titled Happy. Now some time ago I reviewed another mega WAD by this author, Jin, which I really enjoyed. I remember that it was very challenging but also very atmospheric, so much so that I really kept trying to push on even though the difficulty was very high. I remember I praised the WAD for its aesthetic progression and how it started with a heavily supernatural Egyptian aesthetic, and that gradually wore away to something which was much more overtly otherworldly and definitely sinister. It really felt like the protagonist, a dubbed snail, was gradually descending through some kind of cosmic downward spiral of psychological horror, and that there was some sort of meta-narrative that I wasn't quite getting, but darn was that a very good incentive to keep pushing on and playing. So with this new WAD, I was anticipating a similar creepy experience, and upon starting this WAD and seeing that grinning title screen, yeah, I knew that if it was creepy that I wanted, then it was going to be a whole ton of creepy I was about to get with this. So I'll start with the general impressions of what I played, and then I'll get more specific where it's appropriate. The author shows a lot of improvement from where they were with Jin, as his levels here are just absolutely layered in detail and care. It is evident that he really had lore and flavor in mind, with each marine corpse that is thoughtfully placed throughout the WAD. However, I didn't quite pick up on the same kind of aesthetic flow from map to map like we saw with Jin. Most of the maps more or less present the same kind of thing, hell. And they do a good job of presenting hell, don't get me wrong. I mean, I haven't played a WAD that showed hell looking so good, or so hellish, in some time. However, there are some odd bits here, like in map 2, which has this large section that appears to be some kind of urban environment. And map 5, Prison of Mirrors, which is titled, appears to be more like a tech base. And map 6 is an oddball too aesthetically. Interestingly so though. What I mean is things start looking very blue with this map, a whole lot of blue everywhere. And then later, things suddenly get very red. And strangely, those are the only two keys here, blue and red. And I've never seen that done before, a map that is so strongly designed around the colors of the keys it contains. I mean, it might have been done, it seems like an obvious idea to do, but I obviously don't recall if it has. I mean, usually I just feel happy when a WAD actually has doors with, color paneling to tell you what key to use, never mind the entire room's being decorated with that color. So, really cool to see that. I'm a firm believer in using colors to build a mood or aesthetic to a map, and it was very striking that juxtaposition of those two colors there. The maps as a whole, by the way, are also strangely named. Map 6 I found to be probably the most bizarrely named. It's called Close to Dog. I thought it just might have been a word scramble, and I kept trying to figure out what it actually meant, but I got nothing. Speaking of odd and strange, the intermission text after map 1 mentions our protagonist from Jin, Snail. Bizarrely, Snail is also listed as the level tester for this WAD, just like in Jin. So I'm wondering if there's some kind of fourth wall breaking lore going on at work here, or maybe I'm just overthinking it. But yeah, that's kind of what I do. I tend to overthink my WADs. So, flavor aside, how does this WAD play? Well, I know I try not to swear often, but I just got 3 words here. Holy shit. The entire time I was playing this, I could only think of 2 things. David Bowie and John Romero's Sigil. I'll get to Bowie in a second. But while I was playing this atmospheric meat grinder, I kept thinking of Sigil, which is also pretty atmospheric. But if anyone really believes that Sigil is in any way unfair, and yes, there are people out there that have called Sigil unfair, no, just no. I can think of so many other WADs that they're quality WADs, don't get me wrong, very good ones, that make Sigil look like a cakewalk, and yes, this is definitely one of them. Things start really challenging in map 1, and that difficulty dial just goes way the hell up suddenly in map 2. Where my expression for the rest of the game looked a lot like David Bowie at the end of the music video for I'm Afraid of Americans. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, David Bowie did a song with Trent Reznor back in the day in a video, and in the video the man is running for fear for his life, and at the very end of the video, he barely escapes Johnny, that's being played by Trent Reznor, and then he turns around and sees a whole lot more danger is on the way, and that he's still not safe. And look at this guy, look at that expression right there. That is pretty much my face for most of this mega WAD, and that's pretty much how this WAD plays from map 2 onward. You'll just barely get through one ambush and just trot boom right into another seemingly impossible scenario. After much dying and much gnashing of teeth and much swearing and much cursing, you'll eventually get through it, and then oop, another virtually impossible ambush. Again and again and again, the author just loves throwing these very scary odds your way all at once. Now, however, just like with Jin, which I don't remember being anywhere near this hard, I do remember it being very, very hard at times, but not nearly this consistently hard, I pressed on just to see what would happen next. And, credit to the WAD, it's a cool thing when you could actually engage the player that way and make them want to play the WAD just to see what happens next lore-wise. So I did. And like I said, the author really improved with their level design. After some trial and error, I'd learn and strategize, and often I'd find vital items just as I'm running and gunning for my life. And it's those items placed in some perfect spots at just the right times that makes these encounters doable. And I'm aware that earlier I said that these encounters seem virtually impossible, and I mean that very literally. They're virtually impossible. Not impossible, just virtually impossible. And there is an odd difficulty curve here. Maps 1 and 5 and 6, while by no means easy, I didn't find to be nearly as rough as maps 2, 3, and 4. And oh boy, I hope you like Archviles, because they're all over the place. Yep, nothing like getting the keys and feeling like you're in the home stretch, with the only things between you and the exit are a couple of hungry, fleshy-made demon corpses, and then you hear the Archviles going and resurrecting monsters. Now, while I praised the item placement, the enemy placement is also on point. Archviles will often appear flanked by other monsters which act as meat shields, or they are strategically spawned and right after you off a room full of monsters. Early in map 3, for example, that's exactly what happens. The author makes sure by placing a ledge with only stairs, only on one side, that you can't just kite the Hell Knight out of this room and have the Archvile spawn away from the Hell Knight corpse. There's also some other enemies here too that kiting them is not an option. So that was a very, very smart use of architecture there, I thought. Now, I know I've been complimenting the item placement, the enemy placement, the aesthetics and everything, but if I'm going to offer some criticisms, I do have a few in mind. So I understand it's still a work in progress, and as it is right now, it feels like the maps are kind of out of order in terms of difficulty. And as one would expect with texture work as complicated as this, there are a few textures that don't quite line up. I also think I found a glitch in map 4 where I couldn't get through this one door here. The switch that I think was to open the door didn't appear to work, so I had to no-clip through it. Granted, it might be entirely possible that I just might have missed something, and knowing the author and knowing the level of complexity they bring to their maps, that's totally possible, but I just kept searching and searching, and I didn't find a way out, so I don't know. And if I did miss something, some more, I don't want to say I need to be handheld, but some more clear hints would have been nice. So to wrap up, I hope this WAD gets finished up someday. I look forward to playing the completed product. I wouldn't mind slightly less Archviles here and there. True story, I'm afraid of Archviles. I'm afraid I can't help it. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Oh, and if you never heard of David Bowie's I'm Afraid of Americans song, go on YouTube and definitely watch it. It's a good song. And this is JagTagger93 signing out. Have a good one.